Coming up, we are putting youth at the forefront. We'll take a look back at trailblazers and activists we spoke to in 2023. And we'll get to hear from new voices on what we can expect from youth in 2024 and years to come. Stay tuned for this special edition of the ICT Newscast.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.
The ICT Newscast is sponsored by the Indian Land Tenure Foundation, a nonprofit organization serving American Indian nations and people in the recovery and control of their rightful homelands. On the web at iltf.org.
Support for the ICT Newscast with Aaliyah Chavez comes from the Arizona PBS studios in Phoenix at the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communications at Arizona State University.
Kawatsi Nasehopa, and Happy New Year! Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Paris Wise. We start our newscast looking back at a major accomplishment for a young Navajo artist. The United States Postal Service unveiled its collection of forever stamps in March of 2023, one of which was The Art of the Skateboard, designed by Dior Greenwood. Take a look at the interview with Dior and ICT's Aaliyah Chavez.
Hi, Dior. Welcome to the ICT Newscast.
Hey, hello.
We have a photo of your stamp, but tell us about the design and how you came up with it.
When creating this design, I wanted to fall back on the consistencies in my life. And a lot of those consistencies were when I woke up to pray to the morning star, or when I had a very rough day and the day was closing out, I always seen the evening star. So that central design in the center definitely is something that has always been consistent in my life, and that is the morning star and the evening star, as well as every sunset and every sunrise. So I wanted to do something that, everyone as a human can relate to, that we see every day, and put it into, something like a stamp design, but also the two eagle feathers on the skateboard are extremely important to me as a Dene woman. I use the eagle feathers today to pray and to send my prayers, everything across the board, but also in the same aspect, the eagle logo carrier for the U.S. Postal Service is also very important. So I wanted to do something that combined, that love community, but also the respects of the importance of a stamp. And so I came across this design purely by drawing something out and allowing it to take form as I continued to design it, and it completely changed from my first idea of what I wanted it to be, and it's its own life form. And I'm happy that it's real and it's here and it's on a stamp, and the kids in my community and the elderly in my community actually get to be a part of it and claim it as our own.
You're actually a skateboarder yourself. How did that give you a unique perspective to make this stamp? So I'm a skateboarder, but also a skateboard maker. So the board featured on the stamp is a board that I had handmade, hand pressed, hand cut, shaped, and then designed. So I definitely wanted it to, pay respects to skateboarders all around, and even skateboard makers, because, a lot of people only see the finished product of a skateboard. So when asked to do this stamp, I reached out to the people close to me, and they allowed me to come by. Propel Skateboards for Kids allowed me to come in, use their skateboard press, make the skateboard from scratch. And, I just felt like it had to be an all-around story and an all-around narrative. So, it was important that I made the skateboard. It was important that I did a design that, represented my community, but also a design that skateboarders will, respect and be appreciative of.
Dior, I'm curious, the skateboards behind you, did you make those?
So those skateboards are, yes, so the 3 decorated ones behind me are handmade, and then the 2 ones off to the side, those are just redesigns.
And will you plan to make a skateboard, like a real life skateboard, I should say, based off of the design that you created for the United States Postal Service?
That is an actual real skateboard. The skateboard will be living in the Smithsonian Postal Museum for many years to come after the stamp releases.
You started talking about this a little bit earlier, but I'd love to dive deeper into the significance of Americans buying your stamp and the representation that it brings.
Yeah, when reached out, my great grandmother was still alive at the moment when I first got the first contact about this entire project, and I was so thrilled. On my very next trip back to my homeland, I shared with her, the opportunity I will have, and she was so proud of me because, my great grandmother entrusted every important message and everything she's ever needed to get to somebody with a stamp. So to her, a stamp is, equivalent to like a brand new phone to a teenager. That's what they trust, but this is what my great grandmother trusted. And, it's such a small thing on a stamp, but it was so vitally important to her and to many other people in my community who don't have the cell data and communications. And we still use stamps today to send, important documents, pay our bills, and everything across the board. So yeah, this is a project I instantly knew was a lot more meaningful and a lot bigger than myself.
Dior, very quickly here, what other kinds of projects are you working on aside from this stamp?
I continually just try to evolve and help the youth in my community. We're opening skate parks across the Navajo Nation. We're trying to offer safety training and, hopefully down the line of all the aspects of, skateboarding going into the Olympics and such, that the Native community will come together and build Native Olympic facilities, not just for skateboarding, but for everything across the board, from 3-on-3 basketball to archery to equestrian, all the way across. So, I definitely want to dive into helping the youth evolve those skill sets.
Dior Greenwood, one of the artists included in the upcoming Forever stamp. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
A young environmental activist also has high hopes for youth in anything they put their mind to. Last year, Charity Ropati delivered a speech at the United Nations on International Day of Forests. She wears a few hats, including being an Arctic Youth Ambassador and an Arctic Resilient Communities Youth Fellow at Columbia University.
Charity, let's jump right in here. Give us the high points of what your speech was about.
So it was for International Day of the Forests, and I'm from Anchorage, Alaska. I was born and raised there. I really wanted to highlight the work of really amazing, phenomenal organizations like the Southeast Sustainable Partnership, and my dear person, who is from the village of Pusan, who knows how to traditionally live off the land. So I really wanted to talk about her work, but also talk about the importance of Indigenous knowledge within my own research. I remember going to the long-term ecological research all scientists meeting. I was one of very few Native people. I was one of the only Native youth there. And I remember presenting my research on fireweed photosynthesis. And 3 days before, I found out that Typhoon Merbok, as we all know, was one of the largest storms hit our communities. And I was left with a heavy heart while presenting this research, and knew that things needed to be different and needed to be more diverse, and that Western science needs to take Native knowledge a lot more seriously. And so I talked about that during my speech at the UN.
As you just mentioned in your speech, you really spoke on ancestral knowledge and playing into climate change. Maybe talk about what that experience was like for you, given that those are all very personal subject matters.
Yeah, so with my idea, I firmly believe that you don't need a degree from institutions, that were meant to serve as settler colonial entities. Like when you think about institutions like Columbia and like Dartmouth, I'm thankful to be here. But when it comes to those back home, there are things that we can do that no one else can, like living off the tundra, being able to live in those conditions. We know when salmon will come in the Yukon River. We know when our trees aren't healthy. And these are things that, scientists should understand that these are things we're able to do. So I was talking about that, and it's kind of like a love letter to Indigenous knowledge. It needs to be uplifted, and I'm really thankful to people like Dr. Jessica Hernandez, who's Indigenous to the South, who really writes about these type of things in Fresh Banana Leaves, and Dr. Robin Wall-Kimmer. These are people that need to be uplifted, especially these Native femmes who do work in STEM. And I don't know, I don't think we would be facing a climate crisis if Indigenous knowledge was centered and if Native people had sovereignty to begin with.
Tell us at a high level what exactly you're researching. I think sometimes academia gets a little, wordy and hard to understand, but in a simple way, what are you researching exactly?
Yeah, so we're pretty much looking at why fireweed is growing in the first place. What we're seeing in Alaska is that it's popping up a lot more. And for Native people, we use fireweed to heal, whether it's with wounds or if we're sick, we drink it as a tea. But with my research, we're seeing that fireweed is growing a lot more. And what we found was that this growth of fireweed is an indicator of where severe soil disturbance is happening. So we're seeing increased nitrogen, pretty much increased fertilization in the soil. And so our question is like, where is this coming from? And so my research is just with that. And kind of incorporating what Native people have always known. When fireweed grows, it's an indicator that change is coming. And so finding ways where we could use, data from, the Western standpoint to validate what Native people have always known so that people know that, like, if we have turned to this ancestral knowledge passed down from our elders, we would have so many answers to these questions.
What's something that you wish other people knew about climate change and really took to heart?
Yeah, I think it's important to especially turn towards the youth, to Black and Native kids. I often hear like people talking about how we hold the solutions, but they never hold space for us to really talk about these things. And so my hope is that they continue to turn to us, but we also deserve to, be kids, to be joyous, to be joyful. And so understanding that when most people turn to us, there is a burden. And so I really want Native kids who are doing this type of work to know that. So like rest is really important, rest is revolutionary. And I also want people to continue to hold space for us, to talk about these things, but to also think about ways where they could safeguard our dreams so that we could do anything we want to do, whether it's to become a scientist or for my younger brother to become a professional skateboarder.
Environmental researcher Charity Rapati, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Continuing to look on into the future, the work from two young leaders may reach new heights this year. I got the chance to speak to the co-presidents for the United National Indian Tribal Youth, also known as UNITY. From mental health to language revitalization, we hear how UNITY is empowering youth by youth.
Manahu Ananine Caitlin Johnston, Numanu Paihubuenu Kimeru. Hello everyone, my name is Caitlin Johnston. I come from where the water flows in Bishop, California. I'm 18 years old and I attend school at Orange Coast College in Costa Mesa, studying in broadcast journalism.
Greetings, my name is Jonathan Arakawa, an enrolled member of the Lower Elwha Column Tribe in Washington State, and I'm the male co-president on the National Unity Council Executive Committee. The past 2 years, we've been focusing on healing and restoring the spirit of Native youth. We have seen a significant drop in youth councils and participation within the Unity network as a result of the pandemic. So 2 years ago, we worked on the Restoring the Spirit of Native Youth, really to help revitalize the network and help get youth councils back up on their feet. last year we were trying to do a new initiative, and then we realized we didn't finish the work that we started. So we went back to that initiative and we changed it up a little bit. We changed the goals and the outcomes, and we came up with healing the spirit of Native youth. So now we're looking at we're somewhat out of the restoration and healing phase. How can we move forward? So now we're looking at an initiative, a national initiative that will focus on mental health as well as culture and language. We went from 2021 with 700 participants in our national conference to last year to over 2,000 Native youth and advisors at our conference. And now we're preparing for 2,500. So really looking at how can we support our youth councils, which is always at the forefront.
As Jonathan mentioned, some of those issues, clearly the pandemic is still greatly affecting youth. What are some of those conversations or ideas in helping support youth today?
Just the more I was attending these Unity conferences, mid-year national conferences, I just fell in love with helping people, and I wanted to do more. So I got the chance to run for the Pacific Region representative during COVID, actually. So I started late, and so I got to be the Pacific Region rep over like the pandemic era. So I got to be online starting off, and then I got to attend a conference and eventually be the Pacific rep for the 2.5 term that I was able to serve. And then I wasn't done yet. So I ran for the co-president position, and the job continues with Jonathan. I think that we have such a strong partnership where we're able to balance each other out. He's like the one who knows all the facts, and then I'm the one with the loud voice who loves to get everyone going. So I think we make a great team. But getting people involved like during the pandemic and after, it was just making them see how important it was to help your communities, I think. And so I think that letting them know that the participation is worth it. Usually most of the time it's giving them some snacks, providing food, and giving them something in return for their kindness and their gesture of helping their community. So just getting people involved with youth councils and showing them how important it is to be involved with Unity, because Unity really does change lives when you think of it.
There is a great deal of importance on conversations surrounding the younger generations and learning their native languages. Can you provide some insight or experiences or conversations you've had with your peers on that topic?
That's a really important topic, especially here at home. Our people have been working on revitalizing our language for the past 30 years. It was at that time in these 30 years that our teachers, our leaders, and our elders realized the importance of teaching our language. And in order for it to live on, we had to teach that language, teach our language. And in order to do that, we had to integrate it into the public schools. We had to go to where our youth were at. And so that speaks to my current work today as a language teacher, is in order for the language to live on, we have to keep feeding it to our youth, to our students, so that the language can live on, that it can live on for the next 7 generations. It was something that we nearly lost as a result of residential schools, boarding schools. But now Native youth are realizing the importance of learning their language, feeling the empowerment of introducing themselves in their language, going to places like Unity and watching people MC speak their language, and they say, I want to do that. I want to be that someday. And they go home and they want to learn their language.
All of this amazing work you guys do with Unity, but you're also students on top of it. Caitlin, can you speak on the balance between being a leader in your community along with being a student?
I think just having the support system and having a good schedule is what keeps me on track, and keeping a good balance between work, because school is work, and fun, and the priority. I find that unity is one of the biggest priorities in my life, just because of the big change that unity has brought to myself and my mental health. So I think that keeping a good balance between everything is just so important, but also making sure you're doing things for yourself, like going on a walk, going to get your favorite Starbucks drink, or going to the beach with your friends. So I still have a lot of fun and live a totally normal life, but I just get the opportunity to do more for Native youth across the country. And I feel extremely blessed every day that I get to wake up and be able to talk to all these Native youth that I get to be in contact with.
Caitlin and Jonathan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There is another co-president making her own waves on the NCAI Youth Commission. That is Yanunui Logan, who is currently finishing up her senior year studying environmental humanities at Cornell University. Her recent international travels gave her knowledge and experience to bring back home. She is here now to share what impacted youth the most last year and why we need to continue to support our young people. Hi, Yanunui, and welcome.
Hello, thanks for having me.
So tell us about what you've been up to lately.
I just finished preparing from the annual conference at NCAI, but we're already preparing for the Executive Council Winter Session for NCAI, where we will be holding the Native Youth Leadership Summit and preparing for the second ever in-person Youth State of Indian Nations. I also just got back from Rome, where we had the United Nations Global Indigenous Youth Forum, and I had the opportunity to kind of network, connect, and talk about different climate solutions and agricultural practices, and really just storytelling with youth from everywhere, from the Amazon to the Arctic to Guam, like a really diverse audience. And it was really cool to connect with people. And I'm still kind of cherishing those connections and keeping in touch with people.
What were some major highlights for youth last year in 2023?
Last year was a big year. I think what really kicked it off for me was delivering the first ever in-person Youth State of Indian Nations. That really kind of displayed just like the accomplishments and the needs of Native youth. And then from there, like, I feel like the year really just took off with the ICWA decision. I think that was something that like we really championed, and the whole, like, all of Indian country was really able to like celebrate and feel good about. And there's so many things to not feel good about. So when those few things happen, especially with the tribal government, like there's need for celebration. I also was pretty familiar with the bipartisan infrastructure law and how much tribal funding we got, like $13 billion. And I don't think youth yet even see what that kind of means for tribal nations. And I think that I mean, last year that was a huge accomplishment, but even looking forward, like, what is that going to do for us? How is that going to affect our higher education programs or our community events and sports and just things like that? I know at the NCI Youth Commission, we created our first ever travel scholarship. And so I'm just like kind of excited to see how those things grow over time, and how many youth initiatives have just like been built over this past year. Like, there are programs and conferences and like leadership teams and leadership workshops all of the time now. And I'm circulating to all of my friend groups, and it's been, I don't know, I feel like really great to see that youth are being championed and they're being appreciated and valued in a lot of these spaces that maybe never before were. I also think one of my favorite things this year was seeing Indian Girls Book Club be founded and just really take off. Like, it has just really pronounced the need for Native literature and for Native youth to just read and feel comfortable and welcomed and loved. And I think that has been one of my favorite initiatives that I've seen in Indian country. You know, more young people in Native literature and journalism is really important to me. I really do appreciate and value Native people who write and who read, like that, like we're storytellers, and I just want to read everyone's story. So that's something I always look forward to.
What are your hopes for youth, not only in 2024, but in the coming years?
On my mind, I'm graduating in May. And so I'm really excited to wear my new regalia at Cornell University at an Ivy League where not many people are wearing the regalia up on stage, and I'm really excited to see how that grows. I think in a lot of schools near me, more high schoolers, like they're getting to wear their regalia on the graduation stage. And that's like been a huge initiative from the NCI Youth Commission to make sure that we have that right and that we're able to practice that. And I'm really excited to see how that grows and how people like find expression in that. I also think this year is an election year, and that's really important. Getting youth to vote if they're of age, and it's also an election year for the NCI Youth Commission, so we'll be welcoming new young faces and new young leaders.
Well, Yananui Logan, we look forward to seeing what you and other youth across Indian country continue to do. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. For all the latest, visit ictnews.org. From all of us in the newsroom, stay safe, my relatives.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.